It is now time for Diary of a Wrestling Fan with Bill Chase. And now here he is, the man who once had an audition tape to be the bass player for Creed, Bill Chase! Thank you, Mr. Podcast Announcer, and welcome to another edition of Diary of a Wrestling Fan, completing my Royal Rumble trifecta this week. And of course, this podcast chronicles my 37, almost 38 amazing years of being a fan of professional wrestling. Thank you for listening on Spotify, on Anchor, wherever podcasts are streamed. If you're listening on YouTube, hit that subscribe button right now. Before we get to the wacky night that was the 1994 Royal Rumble, I want to give, of course, a quick plug to Pro Wrestling Ontario. New episodes of Foundation every Saturday at 3 p.m. on YouTube. Check them out, Pro Wrestling Ontario. If you're listening to this podcast on YouTube, you can scroll the corner window there. You'll see a link to our channel. Click on it. After you're done listening to the podcast, hit subscribe, check out some of the videos, hit like, give us some feedback. We have some great matches on there lately. Again, we also have some full shows. Both our Iron Cup tournaments are on there as well. So again, you can catch up on all things Pro Wrestling Ontario related. Even through the pandemic, we're still trying to give you the best we can. That's Pro Wrestling Ontario. Also follow us on social media, Instagram, Twitter, and give us a like on Facebook. Alright, we're going to get down to it, completing the Royal Rumble trifecta that I promised, even though it's been long delayed. 1994 Royal Rumble. And wow, this show brings back a lot of fond memories of my young wrestling fandom. Now, let's take you back here. So, of course, this takes place January 22nd, 1994. At the Providence Civic Center, 14,500 fans in attendance. A good draw here. Buy rate, however, one of the lower ones in Royal Rumble history, 200,000. So, at the same time, though, still a good house, though, for the WWF at this point, at a time where business wasn't exactly setting the world on fire in some ways. Well, I shouldn't say that. It wasn't exactly setting North America on fire. The world actually was pretty ablaze thanks to the likes of Bret Hart and whatnot. So, there you go. Let's give a little picture now. At this point, I'm in grade 5, okay, and I'm in life for this 10-year-old kid in Hamilton, Ontario, who's going on 11 in March of this year, 94, is good. My family and I are making positive changes in the sense that my parents at this point were starting to aim for the springtime to start actively looking for a new house. We had lived in the same duplex house for about 8 years at this point. We lived on the downstairs level for a good 7 years almost, and then we spent our final year on Clyde Street on the upstairs level. So again, it was it was an interesting neighborhood where there's never a dull moment, to say the least. And the Montreal Canadiens are the defending Stanley Cup champions. Patrick Wwe is, a god in my eyes. The world of professional wrestling. At this point, it seemed to be more and more uncool to like wrestling in the general public. More and more I was getting, it's fake. It's ridiculous. How can you like that fake crap? And getting made fun of by kids in school. Oh, you like Bret Hart and stuff like that. The only wrestling fan I had that was a couple friends at this point were still fans. The thing is, though, most of the ones that were fans of my class that were still fans of wrestling picked on me more than anything. Not about wrestling, though, just in general. But no, my friend Sandra, who I mentioned on previous podcasts and whatnot, she was still a fan. Problem was, though, in grade 5, I didn't really sit that close to her. So we would talk on recess and that, but it's not like we never talked, but still, it was not as much as before. And I can understand that the WWF wasn't seen as a trendy thing for quite some time, but in Canada it still had a pretty good audience in many ways. Because I still remember a significant amount of people talking about it. Like, again, I'm 10 years old. I don't know how bad business is, although I am noticing that superstars and whatnot are in smaller arenas, but I didn't really think much of that. Now, at the end of 1993, you had some interesting things happening. Vince McMahon and company were still riding the Lex Express. No disrespect to Lex Luger, who I actually like. But this, I mean, again, I've said this before. I'm not going to be one of those guys that said Lex Luger wasn't over. Okay, because he was. But I just don't think it worked on a level that they were hoping for. Otherwise, I don't think that, they'd lose faith in him and start leaning towards Bret again. Thing is, though, on TV, and I got to give WWF credit for this, with Bret involved in a tag team title scenario with Owen, I didn't think Bret had a chance of winning the Rumble, to be honest. I mean, I was hoping he could, obviously, because I knew he was in the Rumble and was going for the tag team titles that night. And this, folks, is where the most intriguing thing in all of wrestling happening right now involved Bret and Owen. Now, the thing with Owen was that I always, even back then, felt he was fun to watch, because I thought he was, obviously, his talent shines through regardless of the spot in the card. But I never saw him as a guy on Bret's level, not even close to it. Again, when you're 10 years old and Bret Hart's your favorite wrestler, his brother Owen's pretty cool. But that's really all that's pretty much about as high as you think of him. I remember watching Survivor Series where the build of the split happened, when they had that disagreement in the ring. Owen, being in Bret's shadow. And here's what I say to people who call Bret bad at promos. Is he the best? No. Is he the worst? Definitely not. But when it came to emotionally charged stories, Bret was on in terms of his microphone game. People forget when he was feuding with Jerry Lawler all through '93, or pretty much all through the summer, like late spring, early summer into the fall of '93. Bret's promos leading to the Lawler feud were good. Because again, I guess when you bring family in it, Bret can still use that energy, that rooted energy that he has for his family, into his promos to lead up to that match, and he worked magnificently. The promos of Bret, the sit-down interviews with Vince that they did after the Survivor Series disagreement, it was amazing. Owen made a great point. He was sick of being in Bret's shadow. At this point with Owen, and this is what makes Owen such a superb performer as well, you could see the resentment at that point, but that's all you saw. You didn't see the outright hatred. Because I think Owen, because again, where they were going with this angle, this is magnificent storytelling here, and only Bret and Owen could pull this off. Seen so many disappointing brother versus brother, former partner versus partner feuds. Not this one. Oh, this was far from disappointing. Again, the resentment was there, but there was no hatred yet, which to me it was an important plot line because of what would happen shortly after. Bret vowed he would never, ever take on his brother. You can see Bret, you can see the pain in Bret because Bret's never backed down from a challenge, being a former babyface world champion. And you can see while it pains him not to live up to that reputation. And you can see he's conflicted. He doesn't want to, he feels he can't do it. It's just too emotional for him. So he's battling with himself as a competitor and as a brother. So don't ever freaking tell me Bret was terrible on the mic. I'm sorry. He helped sell this very well too. Him and Owen both were just, again, those sit-down promos with Vince were so underrated. So then they reunited over the holidays. But even as a kid, I noticed this. When they cut their reunion promos and that on TV, you can see Owen was kind of trying to lead things. And I'm thinking to myself, that's kind of strange. So I'm thinking, maybe they're not together. I remember even saying to my cousin Wayne, who at this point was still a big wrestling fan, I said, Owen seems kind of like he's trying to captain the team. Then Wayne, again, Wayne was a couple years younger than me. He had just turned 8 pretty much at this point, said to me, yeah, he's gonna betray Bret. Just watch. He's gonna do it. I'm thinking, I don't know. I mean, maybe it's just, being a young wrestling fan and being behind the baby faces, I guess you just don't want to see it happen. So to me, that was the most interesting piece of business going into the Rumble. But that being said, The Undertaker finally getting a title shot on TV. Taker hadn't had a title shot in over 2 years since he lost the damn thing. To be honest with you, the last title shot he had on television was, the '92 Rumble, when the Rumble match was for the title. So in a feud with him and Yokozuna. By the way, that Yokozuna documentary that aired on the network, check that out. So anyway, let's just say people could use, the wrestling business can use more guys like him. I'm not just talking about the character that he played either. So sorry, I digress. Taker Yoko, for whatever reason, even on paper, just seemed to make sense. It just seemed to scream marquee. And yeah, you're at a time where business wasn't, the greatest, but Yoko had some house show programs that did do pretty well. So he definitely wasn't a flop or anything as champion, like some people try to claim, but that was that's how it was back then. There were some programs in certain markets that would draw well, others that wouldn't. It was all over the place. But there was some very strong houses with Yoko as champion, especially with The Undertaker. Now here's another thing with The Undertaker too. Now yes, I said on TV he hadn't had a title shot, but again, that's what made it so special. Because I knew, obviously, I knew he had a Coliseum video match with Ric Flair. I know he had a few matches with Flair in the fall of '92 before Flair dropped the title to Bret. Again, I know he worked a couple times with Yoko on house shows kind of leading up to this. So, yeah, but again, that was the specialty of television. Beauty of television back then, and no spoilers on the internet. Because in Hamilton, we hadn't had a show in Hamilton since the year prior, in spring of '93. And it drew a terrible house, and they didn't come back until '96. They killed the town, son. Killed the town. No, just kidding. But either way. So, even though the Lex Express was being ridden with Lex, they're still building Lex to be the winner. And this is another great story, too, I liked. For some reason, again, when you look back at this time, not a lot of people look back at it fondly, but there was some good stuff that they came out with here. I talked about Bret and Owen. I talked about Taker and Yoko making sense. There was, again, a lot of good stuff happening at this point. To me, if there was anything laughable about some of the product, it was some of the kooky, kind of mid-card characters, granted. But to me, for the most part, the main event was just fine. Razor Ramon is Intercontinental Champion. He was immensely popular. Shawn Michaels was doing pretty well. So, there was a lot of good stuff still happening on that upper level. And another thing I have to point out is that there were some up-and-coming talents, like a youngster by the name of Sean Waltman, playing the 1-2-3 Kid. Some say in hindsight it was a bit of a doofus-type character, that he was too much of a white meat babyface, but you know what? He was over. And I guarantee, when crowds start happening in wrestling, if Sean Waltman, even at the age of 48 years old, were to come out dressed as the 1-2-3 Kid, I have a feeling I would still get a pretty good reaction. So there you have that. Diesel, Kevin Nash, again, definitely a presence they were trying to build up. And on the spoiler, I'll go into more detail later. It truly began on this night in the Royal Rumble. But anyway, I digress to my original point. So a really good piece of storytelling here now. Okay, we make jokes about the Lex Express thing. Lex Express ran out of gas before it could even make it all the way to WrestleMania. That's the old joke that a lot of people say on message boards, and it's pretty amusing. To be fair, in theory, not having Lex win the title at SummerSlam, I can understand Vince wanting to milk the thing to WrestleMania. I can understand that for sure. But to me, what I think lost some people, I'm not saying all, but some, because I remember watching SummerSlam 93 and remember my dad thinking it was ridiculous too. He beat Yoko by countout and celebrated like it was the greatest victory any wrestler had ever achieved. By countout, it was his only title shot in his contract. Now again, we can all play fantasy booker here, but I'm going to do that right now. I even said back then, I'm thinking, it's just not right for him to celebrate that way. He didn't win anything. And if Lex had, kind of like had his hand raised, was happy for the win, but not really smiling, just kind of, raises his hand to the crowd, nods them, thanks to them for his support, but then kind of just walks away. To me, I think that would have been more effective, and I think it would have built sympathy on Lex. Also, if Lex knocking Yoko out of the ring, if Lex even gone outside, now again, Yoko being very heavy, if he can't lift him, he actually tries to lift him. He tries to lift him, and they could put over Lex's strength by actually having him lift Yoko a little bit, and the crowd getting behind him, thinking, come on, Lex, come on, get him in the ring. And then he doesn't. But Lex sees the ref go to 9, so Lex still jumps in the ring so he can get the win even. Just so he can get the win, but still not be happy about it. Because he'll still get winner's money or whatever, you know what I mean? Or the victory, so he can, I don't know, because a victory is better than not winning at all. They could have found a million different ways to work it, or I don't think that double countout would have worked, but I don't know. There's just better ways I could have gone about it, I think. It just seemed hokey, it just seemed a little stupid. Even, again, as a 10-year-old kid, I wasn't buying it. And that match with Lex and Yoko was actually very underrated. I actually thought it was a really good match. I thought something about them clicked. But yeah, but the great story they built up here with Lex, because again, remember, he had that clause in his contract where he couldn't compete for the WWF Championship as long as Yokozuna was holding it. But going into the Rumble, Yoko was holding it, but he might not coming out of it. So there was this conundrum there, and they did a good job of building this up on TV. So they did this whole thing where Jack Tunney negotiated a deal with Mr. Fuji, saying, okay, of course Mr. Fuji being Yoko's manager at the time, Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette, that Fuji could call in 2 of his buddies from Japan, that was the way they built it up, 2 Japanese wrestling stars to be in the Rumble. And, of course, it was the great Tenryu, and I know, it's not the great Tenryu, it's Genichiro Tenryu, but still, I think he's great. And the great Kabuki, that's actually his name, the great Kabuki, so don't get mixed up there. I realized what I said there just before, I didn't want people to get confused, but Tenryu and the great Kabuki, to really put it more specifically, I suppose. So yes, he was bringing in these 2 Japanese wrestling stars, and in order to kind of go after Luger. Plus, Crush was also in the Rumble, so they kind of built on that too. Crush was also managed by Mr. Fuji at the time, and that was another good angle they had too. Again, there was some really good stuff in late '93 and going into early '94. Crush and Macho Man had a feud that made sense. It was logical why Crush was so angry, but at the same time, though, you think he's kind of, maybe being a little bit of a baby about it. You could understand why he's pissed off, but at the same time, you don't feel the need for him to align himself with Mr. Fuji. So yeah, I thought it was, that was a good story too. So Macho and Crush had a good thing going. Razor and Shawn started their build up. So really, if you look back, there's a lot of great stuff happening. But much like a lot of great stuff in wrestling, sometimes you got to weed through some okay, and sometimes just not so good at all stuff. Alright, well, it just goes to show you that even in a time that didn't do great business, was still doing its best to keep their fans entertained. The fans that they still had watched their product entertained, I gotta give them that. And as an 10-year-old going on 11-year-old kid, I was enjoying it more than I wasn't. Hell, I was enjoying almost everything at that point. So I remember that was huge because now, at this point, I'm pretty much allowed to order every WWE pay-per-view. It's a given that I'm going to watch it. But since the Rumble was on a Saturday on this year, I actually asked my dad, I said, can Wayne come over? I wanted Wayne to come and watch it. And my dad said, yeah, of course, there's no problem. But of course, we don't want too many people at the house, and these things run kind of late. But my Aunt Teresa was willing to let Wayne come over and watch it. And my dad brought, of course, invited my Uncle Roy, as well as my cousin Mike. Mike was only about 5.5 at that point, but he actually liked wrestling back then a lot too. And I think my Uncle Bill came by, and because our second, the second floor duplex for the house wasn't as large as the downstairs in many ways, but still we were able to cram everyone in our living room. I think my dad's buddy Kerry came over as well. He came over for pay-per-views quite often. So we had the party set for Saturday, January the 22nd, 1994, Royal Rumble. And I'm excited because, again, being an Undertaker fan as well, I'm thinking this is finally it. He's going to end Yokozuna's title reign. So here goes. The 1994 Royal Rumble show. Now, right away, of course, again, there's crazy things happening. So, initially, Tatanka was scheduled to face Ludwig Borga, the Hellraiser from Helsinki. I can't do a Finnish accent. But, either way, Borga, the environmentalist, as it came off in many of his vignettes, was not exactly one of my bright spots, and to me, Tatanka's streak, while people can say it didn't mean as much as Goldberg's streak, and they're probably right, or The Undertaker's Wrestlemania streak, but I think it meant enough where someone else could have benefited from that, not a guy who'd be gone in about 6 months. Just saying. Either way. So the show actually opens up with Vince McMahon alone. Now, Bobby Heenan, one of my all-time favorites, one of my heroes, one of my idols, had left the company to go to WCW, although he hadn't appeared on WCW TV, I don't think yet at this point. I think it'd be just very shortly after. And Ted DiBiase's music hits, The $1 Million Man, and he hadn't been on TV since losing to Razor Ramon at SummerSlam. And I think he'd done a couple shots in Japan after that, and then that was it. He retired. Ted retired for good. Never wrestled again. And they've been doing like a rotating roster of commentators by the end of '94. I guess just kind of, I don't know, maybe it's just to see who fit. Maybe it's just a theme that Vince was trying for to make Raw more intriguing. Like superstars, you had, I think Johnny Polo come in and do some commentary on that, because Lawler at this point, I should mention, was, of course, facing allegations of statutory rape, which he was later cleared of and would be back by WrestleMania 10. But that being said, though, it kind of threw the commentators, the commentating schedule off. Heenan's gone. So again, they lost Lawler and Heenan pretty much within the same week. Or the same couple weeks, I guess I should specify more. But I know that Gorilla Monsoon and Jim Ross were doing, Wrestling Challenge and whatnot. So they still had, but their main shows were, I guess you could say, not. They were trying to just try new different things, which is good on them. I mean, hey, just try to find something to stick with it and see what works. Stan Lane, and again, I love Stan Lane. Okay, Stan Lane was a phenomenal wrestler, but as a commentator, he fucking sucked. Even as an interview guy, he wasn't that great. But regardless, no disrespect to Stan, though. Stan's one of the all-time great tag team wrestlers, in my opinion. So, but I love Vince's reaction. Vince's reaction, he sells it really well when DiBiase's music hit. He's like, this guy. Just it's almost like he's disgusted that he's got to share a night with him. I mean, I thought DiBiase wasn't half bad on commentary. I actually thought he's pretty good, because he would stay on TV. I think he would actually go over to Wrestling Challenge not long after this. So, yeah, DiBiase was a really good commentator, I felt. Maybe, I mean, I missed Bobby and whatnot, and Lawler, but I don't know, Ted still added some substance to the show. He maintained his heelish character, but wasn't overbearing. Wasn't always trying to get himself over or anything like that. He stuck with what was going on. And yeah. And he had great continuity, too. I'll get to that later. So it's Tatanka and Bam Bam. And to be fair, these two actually had a house show feud in '93, which never really had a pay-per-view payoff. I mean, they did have that six-man tag at SummerSlam with Tatanka and the Smoking Guns against Head Shrinkers and Bam Bam, but it didn't really, pay off the feud in a big way. Which is weird, because they spent some pretty significant time on TV building that up. So Bam Bam and Tatanka here, they had good chemistry. Actually, I have to say, this was a fun opening match. Again, they really had a lot going for them, and it was something to get into. I remember my cousins actually arrived late, some of them. Like, some of the guests arrived late as this match was underway, but I don't think they were crying too much about... a lot of them didn't seem to like Tatanka very much. I liked Tatanka at the time. But I remember actually being really into this. And of course, Bam Bam was kind of like was kind of clean, almost close to clean shaven here. And I remember my dad's buddy Kerry pointing out how Bam Bam looked just weird, that he needs facial hair. Like, no, this isn't working for him. And the match itself, Tatanka won. Even though Tatanka's undefeated streak was over, he hadn't lost on TV anyway since the Borga match. At least I don't recall him losing. And yeah. And this was, again, a fun way to open the show. It got me really excited for what was ahead. And you know how they say some tweets or statuses or jokes or anything just doesn't age well after a long time? Well, you actually see a sign in the crowd during the show that says Yokozuna R.I.P. And especially after watching the documentary recently, like, yeah. But next up we had the Quebecers, the tag team champions, of course, Jacques Rougeau and PCO. Well, back then it was just known simply as Pierre. And again, he's still going strong today, taking on Bret and Owen Hart. Now, the pre-match promo for Owen saying how he's going to win Bret another tag team title. Again, he's keeping with the theme here. And I remember Wayne looks at me, he's like, he's going to betray him. He's going to betray him. But of course, I'm still wondering how that's going to happen. So, they did actually, I guess, one of those title changes to build interest where the Quebecers actually lost the titles for a week to 1-2-3 Kid and Marty Jannetty. Won it back at, they lost on Raw, won it back a week later at Madison Square Garden. So this match was, again, for the titles. The Bret and Owen just had a phenomenal match with the Steiners, which is on Coliseum Video and on the Heart and Soul DVD. Oh, gotta check that out. Gotta check that out. It's probably the best match the Steiners had during their entire WWF run. So this match was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. I'm rating it because, again, Bret's my guy. And we're all pretty much rating this match, everybody watching. So Bret, of course, hurts his knee in the match. Now, that's the big story here. Man, Bret was so good at selling knee injuries. That was seemed to be his specialty. And it is important to point out that he does have, he does have a chance to tag Owen, but doesn't take it. Now, of course, spoiler, Owen would later claim selfishness, but Bret, it's more of a pride thing, I think. And I think that's what they really try to get across. Now, you can see Owen here is kind of acting a bit like a hothead. And again, but Owen at this point, is he going? Is he going? Mind you, that's not a surprise. But he is unbelievable in this matchup. He truly is trying to show that he can be a star. And I love that. I think he knew what was ahead for him. I think he knew this was his big chance to truly get out of that mid-card rut he had been in for the better part of over 2 years at this point, and he was going to make the most of it. He was going to try to make himself some more money. Now, when I say Owen was acting like a hothead, it was like a lot of the double teams he'd come in and would kind of get a little overzealous, and the distraction would allow Bret to get beaten down some more. The crowd is on fire for this, by the way, I gotta say. I think the reason why we would see what we would see later, again, spoiler, I think Vince knew that despite the way things were going at this point, Bret could still be his guy. Like he was before. And again, Owen, the way he sells his overzealousness here, like he's not overzealous to the point where, he's screwing up all the time, but just, you can see his dedication again, because it works twofold in a way. He's trying to show that he's ready to be a star, and he's trying to sell the story of him wanting to escape Bret's shadow and hold a championship. This is just brilliant stuff here. So Bret comes back in. Now I jumped the gun a bit. Because Owen got a hot tag, and then Bret came back in, and there goes his knee. Just a couple really good tags in this match, if you will. It's very rare to see a couple hot tags. He hurts his knee again. Bret does have a chance to tag, doesn't take it. Again, more of his pride. It ends when he tries the sharpshooter, and again, the crowd's just rallying right behind Bret here. And it's after he tries to put the sharpshooter on, and he can't. Kind of collapses, clutches his knee. And then they lose. They forfeit the match. So Bret's struggling to get to his feet. And I remember we're all right into it. And I remember I was just pissed off the match ended that way. And we were all just kind of threw up our arms like, are you kidding me? Then we see Owen berating Bret. And then I look at Wayne. And I said, oh, maybe here it comes. And Bret struggles to get to his feet while Owen's berating him, not helping him. And everyone in the living room this way is like, here it comes, here it comes. And then the kick, the infamous kick heard round the world, kicking his leg from under his leg. Boy, I love that line, I do. A great visual, though. Because Owen's getting booed out of the building. Like, massive heat here, so this thing's in high gear. And I, as a kid, I'm losing it while my dad's laughing at me, of course, because of me being the total mark. But, like, I'm losing it, and I was just like, yeah, I hate you, Owen. And I hated Owen so much after this. Hated him. But the great visual was Owen backstage being interviewed. And you see Bret writhing in pain on the gurney. And Owen's on the Tron. It wasn't called the Titantron yet. It was called the Video Wall or whatever. And just to look at the people booing. It was amazing. That's when Owen says, I kicked your leg out from under your leg. It's one of those moments, like, it was a botch, but it wasn't like a botch in the sense where a shit the bed botch, I guess some people would call it. It was a, oh well. You know what I mean? Like, it still was infamous. Only Owen could get away with that, though, and not, make it seem like a botch. That's what I mean. I'm not explaining it properly, but it's just like, it became part of his, like, legacy as a performer, but in a good way. I guess that's really the best way I can put it. It wasn't seen as a making fun of moment. It's just more of a, oh wow, it kind of matched the antics Owen would pull off throughout the years as a heel. It kind of matched up with who he was in some way. I don't know. It's hard to explain. But the point got across. The heat from the crowd, the fans hated him now. We're off and running. So, of course, right away, we're all thinking Bret's actually not going to be in the Rumble. And here's the thing. As my dad could predict a lot of stuff that happened, as even my 8-year-old cousin could seem to predict what would happen, there's a lot we didn't see coming. We thought Bret's night was done to kind of, even from a storyline purpose, I guess you could say, sell it. Again, thinking that's it for Bret. We all thought that. Because even Kerry, again, my dad's friend Kerry, who, he doesn't, he'll say, I guess he's not going to be in the Rumble then. So next up we had Razor Ramon versus IRS. And I've learned to appreciate Mike Rotunda more as I gotten older and how good he was. But I could see why he wasn't everybody's cup of tea either, even from the hardcore, fans at the time and the smart marks and whatnot. But even as a kid, I'm just like, I hated him, obviously, because he was a good heel, but I just was bored by most of his matches at this point. I don't know what it was. I liked him with Money Inc. I liked watching him with Money Inc. I hated them, obviously. But I enjoyed watching them. So I don't know. But anyway, the whole story here is IRS has stolen the gold from around Razor's neck, because Shawn Michaels provided the whole scenario, more or less. Razor and Shawn were feuding over who's the real Intercontinental Champion. Of course, that was because Shawn was suspended by the company in late '93 while still the champion. Razor won the vacated title, but of course Shawn's never lost it technically, so he's still carrying around a belt. Razor has his. It was great stuff. The confrontation on Superstars was amazing. Shawn giving him a couple Razor's edges on the aisleway, like giving Razor a couple of them. Just ultimate slap in the face. Diesel, of course, Shawn's bodyguard at the time, getting involved. Just great stuff all around. So this was pretty much to get to that point. Now, this was the beauty of storytelling here, is that the match itself wasn't bad. And remember, we're still, despite what happened all the shenanigans that happened in the previous match, we're still into this. We're still into the show. And when IRS seemingly won the title after Shawn, because the ref got knocked out, Shawn interfered, hit Razor with the title, ran away. Clever finish here, actually. But when it looked like IRS got the pin, which, keep in mind, back then, there weren't a lot of reverse decisions, or weren't a lot of restarting matches. It wasn't like a weekly occurrence, or even a monthly occurrence. So then another referee comes out and points out that there's 2 Intercontinental titles in the ring and explains that Shawn interfered. So the match is restarted. Razor grabs IRS from the second rope. Razor's edge. That's it. Creative finish. That was really well done. Sets up Razor and Shawn even further. And now we get to the title match. Boy. The Undertaker versus Yokozuna. To quote Peter Griffin, "It happened, we let it happen." Well, not really. This is what we got. Now, to be honest, this was the best thing Taker had going for him in a long time. I mean, after feuding with the Giant Gonzalez's and the Curtis Hugheses, this is the best thing he had going for him for quite a while. And the match, I remember being right into it. It was off to a really fun start. And even in watching it as I'm older, they were having a really fantastic match. They were clicking. If you see, some of their house show matches have been on Coliseum Video on that. It's the same thing, but it was a formula that worked, and it wasn't overexposed on TV or anything. So, again, just do what you're familiar with, and whatever works, whatever gives the fans what they want to see. And they were doing it. So I'm thinking, okay, we're actually already into it, because even my dad, as pessimistic as he could be with some wrestling sometimes, even as a fan, and even all the ones who were in on the joke, I guess you could say, for lack of a better term, we're actually starting to cheer a bit when the Undertaker was putting Yoko in the casket. And it looked like the match was about to finish, and then Crush comes out. But this wasn't too much of a surprise. Crush, again, was managed by Mr. Fuji, so it made sense. So I'm thinking, okay, this isn't over yet, but I'm thinking, Taker's going to fight him off. And of course he does. But now comes the Great Kabuki. The only reason I recognize him, because they did show a couple graphics of him, but still, he wasn't on WWE television, so I didn't really know who he was that way. But the only reason I recognized him was because he'd been in a couple of wrestling books that I had. So I think that's Kabuki. I even said that. And then I recognized Tenryu because he was in the Rumble the year before. Plus, I'd read about him in many of the like the wrestling magazines like Pro Wrestling Illustrated and whatnot. So again, this is making sense. These are guys Fuji's associated with, so the Undertaker is going to fight them all off. And then I remember even, I think it might have been, that's what my dad said. He said he's going to fight them all off. Yokozuna's going to make a comeback. And then Undertaker's going to come back from that and win the match. Here comes Bam Bam Bigelow. Yoko's still in the casket. He only took a DDT. And they built up the power of the urn. Of course, which, again, there's nothing, like, you know, people can say it's hokey now, whatever, that's up to them, but again, it's always made sense for The Undertaker to get something from the urn. That's always been the ongoing story since he debuted, well, I actually shouldn't say that, since Paul Bearer took over as his manager in early 91. So Bam Bam comes out. Jeff Jarrett comes out. Adam Bomb comes out. I'm like, come on. And then we're still all thinking The Undertaker is going to, you know, come back from this. Nope. The head shrinkers come out. Then Diesel. They can't get the casket lid closed. And I'm thinking, wow, he's really going to fight them off. Like, we're all excited thinking, we're invested in the story at this point, still at this point. He's still going to fight them off. Like, this is going to be great. He's going to pull off the biggest comeback in wrestling. Like, in a single wrestling match, I should say. And no. So Paul Bearer gets chased down. The urn is opened up and the green smoke floods out, and we all start wincing, kinda. I remember even some of them in the room were laughing. Ugh. Even as I guess I'm 10 years old, I'm thinking this is stupid. And even I remember, I think, might have been my uncle pointed out that I know he gets his power from the urn, but come on. That pretty much sums it up right there. And I've loved the supernatural aspect of The Undertaker more than I haven't. But like, there's a fine line between, you know, building up something, you know, intriguing and something tacky. And they finally get him in the casket because he just can't fight back after the green smoke drains out, loses all his power. Well, that's bad enough. Okay, so he lost. Well, that sucks. Whatever. So then things get crazier. The Undertaker cuts a promo from inside the casket, which airs on the Tron, which actually, when he opens his eyes as his music hits again from the casket, that got a huge pop from the crowd, so I do have to say that. But then what happened after was, I don't know, I think maybe some fans, even I was just half expecting him to like just break out of the casket and just go after all of them. Like, yeah, he lost the match, but he's still, I guess they call it getting his heat back is the term they use, but I didn't know that term back then, obviously, but he would just make that comeback. And then he says, I will not rest in peace. We'll see the rebirth of The Undertaker, yada, 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 yada. And then he falls back, dead again, I guess. Then lightning hits it, and he rises to the heavens in the Titantron. I know it was just a body double. Rumored for years it was Marty Jannetty, but apparently that's been debunked, I guess. If that was bad, you should have seen his comeback. And I remember looking at my dad thinking, he's kind of shrugs his shoulders. He's like, well, I guess we're not going to see The Undertaker for a while. And my dad is one of the few wrestlers my dad still heavily supported at that point. But enough of that ugliness. It's Rumble time. So, again, we're all anxious for the Rumble. No question about that. We get a refill of our refreshments, fill out the bowl of chips. And Scott Steiner is number 1. Samu is number 2. Now, again, I'm not going to go over every little thing here, but for the most part, I'll tell you just who's coming in and whatnot. Now, Scott Steiner, it could be one of two things. Either A, he was selling the fact that he was number 1 and wasn't enjoying it and knew that his odds were against him, or because we wouldn't see him much after this, was just fed up with the company. I don't know. It could be a little bit of both. So anyway, the Steiners and the Head Shrinkers, in my opinion, had an underrated feud where their matches were actually pretty solid from what I can recall. And I thought the WrestleMania 9 match aged a lot better than it, and then became a lot better than I remember it being. So it's 90-second intervals this year, I guess, with time constraints and whatever. And the Steiners, I got to say at this point, even though they're almost on their way out, they're still over. The crowd still is into them. Scott gets a good reaction here. And then Rick Steiner comes out at number 3, and of course, they're going to beat up on Samu for a while. And, this was really intriguing stuff at first. I'm thinking, well, maybe the other Head Shrinkers can come out at number 4, and it's Quang. At first I didn't know who he was. Now, there had been a couple vignettes, I recall, building up Quang, but he was wearing a different kind of mask. He wasn't wearing the mask that we see him on TV here, but of course Vince says he's Quang. And I remember my dad, Quang. What kind of name is Quang? So everybody was laughing at this from the get-go. And they're like, what the hell did he just blow in Rick Steiner's face? It was the mist. It was like he's doing something green. I don't know. So Rick Steiner's incapacitated. Scott suplexes him, I remember. So welcome to WWF, Quang. Again, for those who don't know, Quang is Savio Vega. Sorry to break kayfabe, but it's true. But either way, next up was Owen Hart. Oh, man, the reaction for Owen. Oh, they're, again, massive heat. Great heel reaction here. And again, not wasting time, acting like a heel. Goes right after the blinded guy and tosses him out. I'm like, wow. He eased into this role instantly. My God. So I remember Bart Gunn comes out next, and then there's a lot of nothing happening. And then Diesel comes out. I'm thinking, okay, this could get interesting because big guys in the Rumble always, have they didn't always win it, but they always would do something significant. I had no idea how significant it was going to be here. So Diesel comes in, so long everyone, pretty much. He just shit-canned all of them in a matter of 30 seconds, pretty much. This is where Diesel power truly started running full throttle. Now, Backlund had come out. Backlund at this point hadn't been on TV for the most part since the summer. I know he was still at the company. I think they were even, from what rumors have said at the time, they were considering letting him go. And oh boy, who'd have thought that Mr. Bob Backlund would save his career? Because again, even after this, he wasn't really on TV. So yeah, Bob goes after Nash. Lasts longer than he did in the eventual title match between these two that would take place later that year. I'm not kidding. These two were headlining Madison Square Garden, where, spoiler, Diesel becomes champion and beats Bob for the title. So, that was it for him. And the crowd's starting to stir a bit here. And I'm thinking, oh my God, who's going to take him out? So we're actually, this is good storytelling here. We're anxiously wondering, okay, because maybe the next guy will have better luck. Nope, it's Billy Gunn. We all look at each other like, yeah, he's screwed. I said, he's done. And yep, he gets shit canned too. Bye. And I'm like thinking, oh my God. And then We're thinking, like, who's it going to be next? Like, who's going to be his next victim? Like, we're anticipating is it going to be another victim? Or is it going to be another, is it going to be a big star finally? But before we get to the next participant, though, that's when they got a shot of a locker room of Tenryu and Kabuki attacking Lex Luger. So we're thinking, well, that's going to take him. Oh, no, they're taking Lex into the Rumble, too? Then we actually thought that for a second, like, well, who's going to win it then? Because he was actually our top pick. So we weren't even sure who was going to win the Rumble. I think it was my dad or my uncle brought up the theory that the Undertaker's going to come back and win the Rumble. They were serious. They weren't even kidding. Well, maybe. So Virgil came in at number 10. He actually got a pretty good reaction here because he wasn't really on TV much at this point. Although he still stayed employed for, better part of another year, I think. But, he pretty much was done pretty quick as well. And the shots of Diesel just standing, like, supreme in the ring between these eliminations was incredible. And the crowd's getting behind him. Because the crowd, despite a monster heel here, loves a dominant big man. They made him a star on this night. This is what truly, again, helped ascend him to another level. He was just Shawn's bodyguard at this point. And then he really went above and beyond in this performance. Hence why when there's a clearing spot like this, and then when the next entrant, then the next entrant, the next entrant gets eliminated, they call it the Diesel spot. So there you go. It's set a legacy right there. So we're like, okay, who's going to be next? So again, this is still building our anticipation as fans. And it's the Macho Man. Of course, the place goes, we all cheer in the living room. Like, oh, he's not going to eliminate him. He's not going to eliminate him. We're going nuts for it. So even Kerry looks at me and says, nah, no way he's going to get eliminated here. And yeah, like I said, the crowd's going crazy at this point. Again, Macho Man's French commentator at this time, feuding with Crush, though. He had that intriguing feud going. But just goes to show you that, man, the fans that were still watching the product still adored him. And it looks like for a second that Diesel gets him out. But nope, Macho Man hangs on. But actually, I got that backwards. He looks like Diesel's gonna get him out. Or no, sorry, he looks like he's going to get Diesel out. Sorry, I'm all over the place here. And the crowd's going crazy, thinking Macho's going to, get rid of him. And no, he doesn't do it, though. And then Jarrett comes out. And then Macho kind of just... Yeah, they do the whole skin the cat spot. Macho shit cans him. And then Crush comes out, so we're like, ooh. Here we go. We're actually anticipating this. Then next out is Doink. And the crowd, and when they got rid of Macho Man, the crowd did not like that. Because they're thinking maybe he's going to win it. We thought Bret and Luger were out of this thing. So again, hats off to WWF for putting together some good booking here. So yeah, Doink is out, and then Doink does this. He laughs at them, then he sprays them with his flour. Bam Bam is number 15. Him and Doink are feuding at this point. It's not going to work out very well. Good spot here where Crush and Diesel just allow Bam Bam to beat the shit out of Doink. I thought that was really cool. And then he just gets shit canned like almost Spike Dudley level, it seemed. And that was it. The heels and all fight each other. Remember, Mabel is number 16. Crowd actually stirs a bit for Mabel, another big man. Then we get the TV debut of My Friends Call Me Sparky. Not yet Hardcore Holly. I think he was actually subbing in for the 1-2-3 kid who got hurt just before this show because he was supposed to be in the Rumble. There were a couple sub-ins, it seemed. Because I think Virgil was actually in for Kamala. Kamala was supposed to make his return and be in this Rumble, and Virgil had to step in. So again, things are getting interesting now. Shawn Michaels comes out, and we're like, ooh, that's the thing, because him and Diesel teased Ascension on TV leading up to this. And that's where we're all looking at each other like, ooh, here we go. And we're also thinking maybe Razor's going to come back out or something like that and attack him. Never happened, but still. Again, this is the beauty of wrestling fandom when you're younger. You're thinking of great possibilities of great stuff that's happening. So, Shawn and Diesel almost have, like, they tease a stare down, they tease that they're going to fight, but then Shawn, of course, backs away near the ropes and, hey, it's okay, we're good. And then saying, we're good now, we're good. And the camera didn't catch it, though, but they would actually talk about it not long after. Well, they all gang up on Diesel finally and get him out. And Shawn gives a little shove there at the end. There's actually a picture in the WWF magazine because they would do the results of the pay-per-views, that there's a show Shawn getting in on the eliminations. They got the picture, they just didn't get it on camera. It's too bad, because they could have maybe shown a replay of showing Shawn doing that. So, again, great stuff, though. And the crowd actually gives him a great reaction as he heads back to the locker room as well. So, Mo comes in, and at this point, it's like Barney the Dinosaur Marathon. There's so many people with purple trunks in the ring. Mainly Mo and Mabel, obviously. So Shawn's especially in this Rumble, he was always trying to do something. He was always trying to sell and tease eliminations, which, again, if you're good at that stuff, then keep doing it. And again, he was fantastic at it. And many people would react to him being close to getting eliminated. So Greg the Hammer Valentine's out next. He hadn't been seen on WWE television anyway as the Hammer since, I think, the 92 Rumble. So 2 years. He actually gets a good reaction here, too, because, again, it's in the Northeast, so he's known. Again, he's a legend up there, so he actually gets a pretty good reaction. And, again, there's some lulls here, obviously, and I don't mean lulls and LOL, just lulls in the match, but, again, it builds up for something really good. So Tatanka comes out for pulling off double duty. Now, Royal Rumble double duty was a rare thing. I think Piper was first to do it in 92. So there you go. But him and Bam Bam and Owen and someone else later on, spoiler, was would actually do it. Kabuki comes out, and remember the elimination for Mabel, where the good continuity there, where everybody dumps him, but they all punk Mo out, so he can't stop this. So that's actually really good there, too. Again, I like little things like that. So Luger comes in at number 23. He gets a huge reaction, and even the way DiBiase says, I don't believe it. Oh, I forgot to mention earlier, when Virgil got eliminated by Diesel, DiBiase doing the laugh, his trademark laugh, and taking delight in it. Again, perfect continuity there. Even or DiBiase even freaks out that Virgil's even in the Rumble. Just some good stuff. So Kabuki gets eliminated right away, so at least they finish that story after Luger comes out. Crush then gets involved, because again, he's a part of Fuji's contingent. Again, they're making sense with a lot of the stuff they're trying to get across here. Tenryu comes out next. And, he goes after Luger, of course, and that, again, makes perfect sense. And again, this is where the storytelling really kicks into high gear as well. Number 25 doesn't come out. And Vince sells it. Oh, that's probably Bret Hart. And it would later be revealed as Bastion Booger. Yeah. So Rick Martel comes out, and him and Tatanka kind of renew acquaintances. Not much going on until the buzzer comes up for number 27. And here's Bret. We all in the living room just like, what? Especially me and my cousins. We're all like, no way. And he hobbles out, really, really selling the knee, and the crowd just going crazy for him. And, again, what a babyface moment. Seriously, what a babyface moment. But, of course, everybody goes after Bret's knee right away, so it makes perfect sense. Fatu comes out. And then we get some eliminations here. I think Crush he finally got done by Luger. Jannetty's Jannetty comes out, and he goes after Shawn. That gets a great reaction from the crowd. Again, the Rockers keep at it. And then Adam Bomb was the final one at number 30. So Bret's even making some eliminations here. Tenryu's still in the ring. And he's actually really putting forth an effort here Like, Tenryu's actually really trying. I don't know. I don't think he was trying to get a job or anything. I mean, still had a great thing going in Japan, obviously, but I could never see him working full time for an American company. But maybe he's trying to get like a WrestleMania payday. I don't know. Who knows? But either way, he had one in WrestleMania 7. So yeah, that's true. I almost forgot about that, to be honest. Adam Bomb didn't last long because finally the Rumble actually it starts ending really quick. You know, it gets down to the final 4. I think somebody got the go home cue. And then so the final 4 after actually Bret and Lex team up to get rid of Tenryu. So the final 4 is Bret, Lex, Big Quiche, Fatu, and Shawn Michaels. So not a bad field there. They do a kind of a do-si-do into the turnbuckles thing, but then it ends up the heels getting tossed out, Michaels and Fatu, and yeah, I'm thinking maybe Bret and Lex were supposed to have a longer segment here, but I guess again they had to end this thing. And they fight, and then they just tumble over the top rope together. I'm like, what? And my dad predicted, I guess because the Toronto Sun gave away like an Observer spoiler or something like that, that they heard that he's going to be a double finish. I didn't believe because I thought it sounded stupid. And then I remember looking at my dad, he's just cackling laughing because he was right. So we're already like, well, who won? And my dad's like, they both won. Or they both lost. I'm like, no, really, who won? I'm still, he had predicted this. And because I said I didn't buy it. Like, who won? Like, how are they going to decide this? And then they do a really good, now, to me, I don't know, I could be just reading into this too much. This was the test. This is going to make Vince decide who's going to put the title on at Mania, pal. I'm probably just overthinking things, but yeah, it'd be nice that would be the cool thing that would just show how smart Vince is if he really did do this. And they do a pretty good job of like hiding the replays being conclusive, but some of them seem to suggest that Luger hit the floor first. Like, but again, there's no, like the NFL, no conclusiveness. But you see, I've watched this so many times. It did seem like Luger hit first, but again, it wasn't conclusive enough to really prove that Bret didn't hit at the same time, though. So they keep showing the replay over and over, just the point where all the referees are out there, and then they tease Lex. They hit. Howard Finkel does the winner of the 1984 Royal Rumble, but doesn't say a name. Lex's music hits. The crowd pops for it, and they're okay with it. And I'm like, oh, okay. Because I didn't hate Lex at the time. Like, even though I thought the whole SummerSlam deal was hokey, I would still want to see another match with him and Yokozuna. So, but I'm getting disappointed that Bret didn't win, but whatever. Because I'm thinking, well, in my mind, I'm thinking he's going to fight Owen at WrestleMania. I thought that right away. I'm like, oh, it's going to be him and Owen. I even looked up. Yeah, that's right. I looked at Wayne and said, well, it's going to be him and Owen at WrestleMania, I guess, right? And Wayne's like, yeah. So then the music stops, and then, so we're actually about to change. My dad's actually getting the converter ready to change the channel. Probably to check the hockey scores that night or whatever. But then Howard Finkel says again, the winner of the 1994 Royal Rumble is, and Bret, he still doesn't say the name. And Bret's music is like, oh, no way. You watch the replay now, the crowd is clearly, at least this crowd is on Bret's side. This crowd wanted him to be the guy to go to WrestleMania. Then there's the argument, refs are raising both their hands. Then finally, we see Jack Tunney come out, and then we're like, oh, we all got excited again. Like, oh, here we go. And then they did a really good. I remember this dude. It annoyed us, but in hindsight, it was smart. Finkel's about to make the announcement, and he's confused. He looks confused. He goes to Tunney. The crowd's like, "Oh, come on!" And then we're the same way. I'm like, we're in the living room, like, just announce it already, for freak's sakes. Then he says Bret Hart and Lex Luger. So they kind of do the sportsmanship thing, and then there's still no clear-cut winner. And this led to a good concept, I think, for WrestleMania 10, the coin toss. Where the winner would get the first shot at Yoko, but then participate in a match that has no bearing on their title shot later in the evening, but just get the equal competition thing going. we all knew Luger was winning the coin toss because Bret would have to face Owen, and that was the inevitable showdown. So despite the fact that how that Undertaker match went down, there was some good stuff heading into WrestleMania 10 here. Again, it's the ongoing tradition that you see even these days. There's these times even these days where the WWF, I'm always back and forth, that WWE product or whatever, isn't the best. And you're not really, as a fan, enjoying it. But, to me, even in those times, the build to Royal Rumble to WrestleMania is still much better than it is bad. There have been some lackluster ones for sure, but again, it still makes for intriguing television from all the way to Rumble to Mania. Even now. I'm interested in what's going to be happening from now to WrestleMania. So there you go. So again, this is a time where the wrestling world wasn't exactly, the wrestling world in North America, again, I should specify, again, international WWF was doing well. North America wasn't on fire, but there was still intriguing stuff heading into WrestleMania 10. Now, it would later be revealed, years down the road, the Undertaker was, I guess, healing up from some injuries and had some also personal issues as well. According to a lot of rumor and innuendo. But yes, he would be back, obviously. His return would be just as good as what happened in the Rumble here. I know, I'm supposed to look at things a little tongue-in-cheek at times. There's times where you look at the Shockmaster where bad things age into something quirky for entertainment, where this just, no, I still couldn't get into this. But overall, it was a very memorable show for my childhood, and it got me psyched for WrestleMania, and I got to share it with people that I enjoyed watching wrestling with. And that's the point, isn't it? Well, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you all for joining me. It went a little longer than I hoped, but I ended up recapping more of the Rumble than I intended to do. But regardless, it was still fun to look back on, and it was a very captivating time for a young wrestling fan who was just in the 5th grade. So, there you have it, folks. Once again, if you want to follow me on social media, I am on Twitter at BillChase33, Instagram, the same handle. And also, if you want to add me on Facebook, just simply Bill Chase. I have 2 accounts, but add me with the one where I'm in front of the NSW banner. Getting ready to ring-announce that show. And I love to chat wrestling, especially old school wrestling. So yes, next week's show. Yes, I should tell you what I'm doing next week. Wwe Super Brawl 2. I rented this shortly after it actually happened. I think about just a month and a half later. I'm pretty sure it was April 92 I rented it. But yes, Wwe Super Brawl 2. I was really getting into WCW at this point. And I'd watched some stuff from the Crockett days and even from 91 from Jumbo Video and whatnot. But this was, again, the first time I watched a pay-per-view close to the time it actually aired. It wasn't the first pay-per-view I ordered. That was Halloween Havoc 92. Check that out in the archives, by the way. It's under the Jake Roberts in WCW episode. So yes, check that out next week. That's WCW Super Brawl 2, Sting versus Lex Luger in the main event, and as well as one of the best opening matches of all time. So until then, this is your friend and mine, Bill Chase, telling all you great wrestling fans out there, I don't want you to dare miss it. Thank you for listening to Diary of a Wrestling Fan with Bill Chase. If you'd like to make a contribution to the show, just remember when Bill moves into his new place, you won't offend him with crap dinner as a housewarming gift. In the box, that is, not ready-made. He hates that.